When you think of wild India, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For so many of us, it's the Bengal tiger, right? A symbol of power, of mystery. But this isn't just a story about a cool animal. It's a dramatic tale of a species that was pushed right to the edge of disappearing forever, and then, somehow, made an unbelievable comeback. So, let's get into it. Okay, take a look at this number, 1,411. That's it. That's how many wild tigers were estimated to be left in all of India back in 2006. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a shockingly small number. This was the absolute lowest point after a long, devastating decline for an animal that once ruled the subcontinent. It was like a silent scream coming from the jungle, and luckily, someone was listening. All right, so to really get how big of a deal this comeback is, we've got to understand the crisis first. I mean, how did the king of the jungle end up with its kingdom in total ruins? It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fast a species can disappear. So, this timeline, wow, it shows a truly catastrophic fall. You look back to the early 20th century, and there were literally tens of thousands of tigers roaming free. But then, as the decades rolled on, a couple of major things just hammered their population. First, you had relentless poaching for their skins and bones. And at the same time, their homes were disappearing because of massive habitat loss. It all just came to a head at that critical low point in 2006. The roar of the tiger was fading to a whisper. But right when things looked their most hopeless, a plan started to take shape. India basically drew a line in the sand and said, nope, we are not letting our national animal just disappear. And that decision kicked off one of the most ambitious and determined conservation efforts the world has ever seen. And the cornerstone of this whole thing? A massive initiative called Project Tiger. This actually started way back in 1973, which is incredible, and it began with just 9 protected reserves. The strategy was pretty straightforward, really. It had 3 main parts. First, protect the tiger's habitat. Second, set up dedicated anti-poaching patrols to defend them. And third, and this is super important, work with the local communities living right on the edge of these forests. This was the blueprint for bringing the tiger back from the brink. So the big question is, did it work? Oh yeah, it absolutely did. All those decades of painstaking effort, the scientific management, the boots-on-the-ground protection, it all started to pay off. That silence in the jungle? It was broken. A roar was definitely returning. And you can see the success story right here, in the hard numbers. Look at this. From that rock-bottom low of about 1,400 in 2006, the population just started to climb steadily. By 2014, we're over 2,200. 4 years later, in 2018, it's pushing 3,000. And then the most recent census in 2022 comes out with this staggering figure, roughly 3,682 tigers. That is more than double the population in just 16 years. Just amazing. And to put this into perspective, this success isn't just a big deal for India. It has huge global implications because right now, India is home to about 75% of the entire world's wild tiger population. Let that sink in. It's an absolutely astonishing achievement and really shows a massive national commitment. You could say India didn't just save its own tigers, it pretty much saved the species for the rest of the world. But you know, behind these incredible statistics, it's easy to forget we're not just talking about numbers on a chart. We're talking about living, breathing animals, individuals with their own territories, their own families, their own stories. So that leads to a really interesting question. Who are these tigers? Well, it turns out that behind all that data are some truly unforgettable animals. I'm talking about individuals who became actual legends, who captured the world's imagination and really put a face to this whole fight for survival. And there is probably no greater legend than this one, Machli. She was known as the Queen of Ranthambore and the Lady of the Lakes. Honestly, she might have been the most famous wild tiger in all of history. I mean, her life was it was the stuff of legends. She lived to be 19 years old, which is an incredible age for a tiger in the wild. She gave birth to 11 cubs, basically seeding the future of her entire park. And, get this, in a now famous encounter, she fought and killed a 14-foot crocodile. No joke, she became a global icon, bringing people from all over the world to see her and putting her home, Ranthambore, on the map. All right, next up we have Collarwali. She was a tigress from the Pench Tiger Reserve who earned a very fitting nickname, Supermom. And her legacy, it's all about extraordinary motherhood. Over her lifetime, she gave birth to a record-breaking 29 cubs. Just Think about that. 29. A single tigress who practically repopulated her entire reserve all by herself. An incredible contribution to the overall tiger count. She was a true matriarch of the jungle. And this next one, this is maybe one of the most hopeful stories of all. It's the story of T2, a tigress who became the symbol of a comeback for the Pana Tiger Reserve. And this is a place that had, well, it had tragically lost every single one of its tigers to poaching. The reserve was completely empty. So T2 was one of the very first tigresses to be reintroduced into this empty forest. And she didn't just survive there, she thrived. She gave birth to over 20 cubs, and now her descendants have spread out, repopulating not just Pana, but other protected areas across India. She is, quite literally, the mother of one of conservation's greatest revival stories. Okay, so this incredible success, it's amazing, but it's also created a new reality. The story doesn't just end here with a happy ending, because as the tiger population grows, it's starting to face a whole new set of challenges that are, kind of ironically, a direct result of its own recovery. So what's happening is the threat itself is evolving. You see, the old enemy was pretty clear: poaching and habitat loss. The new challenge, it's a consequence of success. You've got more tigers competing for the same amount of space, which leads to more fights between them over territory. And at the same time, with a growing human population, that border between the wild and our world becomes a really critical flashpoint. And look, this isn't just a theory. We're actually seeing it happen. In recent years, there's been an increase in tiger deaths, but not from poaching. They're dying because of these new pressures, really intense fights over territory and just the general stress of living in a crowded landscape. So protecting tigers now isn't just about stopping poachers, it's about carefully managing their success. And that really brings us to the final thought here. The comeback of India's tiger is, without a doubt, a miracle of modern conservation. But success isn't the finish line, not at all. It's the starting line for a new and permanent responsibility. So the question we have to ask ourselves isn't, can we save the tiger anymore? We've done that. The real question for all of us moving forward is this: how do we protect a miracle?